Good evening, my fellow classmates. According to Census.gov, over 27 million people go without health insurance every year in the United States. And at this point, the EPI estimates that an additional 9 million people have lost their health insurance due to the coronavirus pandemic. Now, everyone here, every human in the United States, is affected by our healthcare system. I'm here tonight to argue that our current healthcare system should be replaced with a single-payer system, also known as Medicare for All. To illustrate this, we're going to look at the downfalls of our current system, the benefits of a single-payer system, and finally, how to pay for Medicare for All. Now, the United States is the only industrialized nation in the world that does not have a universal healthcare system. However, we spend by far the most per capita on healthcare, as illustrated in this graph right here with the United States red at the top, much more than every other country. According to the Commonwealth Fund, per capita spending in the United States is more than double that of Canada, France, Australia, New Zealand, and a slew of other countries. And what do we get for it? Well, we rank 33rd out of 36 countries in infant mortality rate, while settling for 28th in life expectancy, according to the United Health Foundation. The greatest country in the world spends the most money to rank 33rd in infant mortality. Not good. Now, at this point, over 25 million Americans have lost their jobs due to the coronavirus pandemic, with an additional 9 million people losing their health insurance because of this. But the problems with employer-provided health insurance did not start with the coronavirus. In 2018, as mentioned previously, more than 27 million people were uninsured. When people do lose their job, they are offered a continuation of their insurance through a program called COBRA, which some of you may have heard of even more recently, as it has been in the news. I could bore you with data and other facts, but I will tell you firsthand about COBRA insurance. In 2016, I was laid off from my job. At that time, I was currently taking home around $2,200 a month. I was offered to keep my health insurance after losing my job for a mere $1,400 or so a month, just over $1,400. I was making $2,200, then I lost my job, making no money except unemployment, which is remarkably lower. And they were going to charge me $1,400. You don't need a calculator to see how that is untenable for most. Let's move on to GoFundMe. A site originally intended for crowdfunding now finds that over a third of their campaigns are for medical expenses, according to CBS. Some may think that I'm also forgetting about the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. While it has helped more people to become insured, it has also raised the cost of care while also raising taxes on the lower and middle class. It has served as more of a stopgap or a band-aid than as a true solution. So what's so good about universal health care? Turns out a lot. First, people support it. NBC reported that exit polls from this year showed that over 60% are in support of a single government plan for all. While people support it, their votes do not. In a system where people measure their financial situation in terms of how much they need health care would likely make for happier citizens. People would be more likely to seek preventative care under a Medicare for All system, and that would drive the costs down considerably over time. They would also no longer have to ration drugs like insulin to survive or trek over to Canada to find affordable prescription drugs. Also, perhaps access to mental health care might help curb this country's mass shooting problem. Remember GoFundMe that I mentioned earlier? Well, how about the benefit of not having to also stress about being a financial burden on your friends and family after being diagnosed with a terminal illness? It would obviously also be great during a pandemic where so many millions have lost their jobs and are without any form of security. There are also benefits to Medicare for All that aren't related to care. Unions would no longer have to waste time bargaining for decent quality health insurance. Also, people would be more likely to and willing to start a new business if they weren't tied down through their employer's health insurance. Now, Medicare for All is great, but unfortunately it is not an endless war in the Middle East, so we're going to have to deal with the big question. How do we pay for it? Well, by most accounts, it's cheaper. According to a recent study from researchers at Yale, it would actually save about $450 billion per year over the first 10 years. And according to Salon, even the conservative think tank studies show that Medicare for All is cheaper, as their estimate was that it would only cost $32 trillion over 10 years. And while that number seems high, the Department of Health and Homeland Security shows that our current system is going to cost $34 trillion over that same time. Calculator again, $34 trillion, current cost $32 trillion. If we implemented Medicare for All. Also, under Medicare for All, your taxes would go up. But I thought you said it would be cheaper. It will be cheaper. The average middle-class family would see their taxes go up by around $200, while their medical expenses and insurance payments go to zero. But this is the point that politicians use to keep a true single-payer system from ever coming to fruition in America, the threat of taxes going up. And that relies upon people not having a basic grasp of object permanence. Taxes go up slightly for most, while medical expenses drop considerably. Now, taxes would go up on the wealthy, but this is offset by relieving them of the burden of having to hoard that extra wealth at the expense of the suffering of their fellow citizens. See, scarcity is not the problem here. Greed is. In conclusion, the United States needs a universal healthcare system, as our current system is one of the worst in the world comparatively. To illustrate this, we have looked at the problems with our current system, the benefits of a single-payer system, and how it would be paid for. Now, there's a lot of information here, and due to time constraints, I've left much out, but I will implore you, please look into this more. With what is coming economically and health-wise in the future, change is desperately needed, and the time is now. Thank you.